there will be no altcoin season in 2025 or in 2026 or ever again. I love the information, data and numbers that we're showing you in this video. We'll showcase to you why that is the case. Now, I've made over 7 figures trading, investing and working in crypto. I work on the largest crypto companies in the world. We're talking about top 50, top 100 market cap projects. I love the projects that you guys are probably holding or have held in the past. And I'm not saying that to show off, nor am I saying I'm some crazy, no, I'm not professional either. I'm just telling you here that ultimately I'm not a random guy on YouTube telling you a bunch of shit, right? A lot of the information I'm coming you with are the same opinions I've been getting from people in my network. These are guys I worked with, or working with, or I've just met throughout my time in crypto. Right, so one thing I do want to make clear now, right? I'm not some bearish little fuck, right? They're just saying, oh, there will be no altcoin season, we won't have a pump. We will have a run this cycle. We will have a run, but it will look completely different to the previous altcoin season that we're expecting, that we're hoping for, that we've had previously in 21, 22 time, right? This will be a completely different altcoin season per se, but it'll be a completely different run this cycle, and I want you guys to be prepared. And a lot of you that will watch this video until the end will understand why I'm saying there will be no altcoin season. The market this cycle is going to be completely different, right? Completely different to what we've experienced in the past. And you'll understand why by the end of this video. And the first thing I want to go through, right, is understand how altcoin season played out in previous cycles, right? So ultimately, you have a lot of liquidity and money flowing into Bitcoin. Have we seen that? Yes, we have. In fact, we've seen that since Q4 of 2024, right? Dating back to Q4 of 2024, we've seen a lot of money flow into Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin rising from about 60,000 here all the way to an ATH of about 119,000, right? So we've seen that liquidity flow into Bitcoin. Now, have we seen liquidity flow into Ethereum? Because ultimately it goes Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then the rest, then the money starts cascading down to the rest of the market, to the lower caps and to the rest of the altcoins, right? Have we seen Ethereum see that liquidity inflow? Now we're seeing a lot of liquidity coming into Ethereum now, yes, right? But ultimately when I say lots of liquidity, we're looking for ATH for Ethereum. And the previous ATH for Ethereum was back in 2021 when it reached 4.6K. Right. Since then, the highest we've got to is today actually about 4,300 USD for a single Ethereum, let alone cascading down to the rest of the market. We've seen a few tokens that have done well. We've got the main one being Sui, right? But ultimately, a lot of the altcoins here have not seen any, if any, liquidity. They haven't seen much liquidity at all. So, what's happening, right? We got to look at what's changed, right? In the last market, right, we've had 6,000 cryptocurrencies. I searched it up before making this video. It's about 6,000. In 2021, 22 time when we saw that altcoin season, it's about 6,000 average, right? It's an estimate, ballpark, 6,000 cryptocurrencies. Now there's millions. There's millions of altcoins. Millions, right? There's thousands being made every single day, right? And I'm sure a lot of you know this, okay? Now, that's not the real problem, right? There's not a problem. Yes, look, there's a lot of cryptocurrencies now. There's a lot of attention being diverted in a lot of different cryptocurrencies. Yes, I get it, right? There's a lot of dilution, right? Attention being diverted, capital being diverted, but that's not the real problem, all right? The problem somewhat lies in the institutional takeover, right? The institutions now buying crypto. You're probably seeing it all the time. ETFs launching for Sui, Solana, Ripple, right? Bitcoin ETFs, right? You're seeing a lot of institutions and VCs coming into crypto. Now, here's the problem, okay? So we see the top sort of institutions here, of the top Bitcoin holders, and we're seeing institutions here like BlackRock, we see MicroStrategy, got Grayscale, different governments as well, Fidelity, of course. But why is that the problem? Now, per se, like, look, that isn't exactly a problem, but it's a problem for altcoin season, right? The money flowing into Bitcoin, Ethereum, right, and Solana, a lot of this money, right, is being treated as a store of value, right? Let me explain, okay? So, previously in altcoin season, we're looking for those 10, 100x, 1000x gains, right? Now, the problem is with all these VCs, pension funds, and institutions coming into crypto, right? They're treating it like digital gold. They're treating it like it's a store of value, right? And that's a problem for altcoin season, as ultimately before, right, they'll come in, buy crypto with a lot of retail traders, a lot of different traders, institutions as well, right? But they'll play the market on how it was being played, right? So ultimately, the money would flow into Bitcoin. They would sell because they know that Ethereum will run. They'll buy Ethereum, then they'll start loading up on XRP, Solana, some layer ones, gaming, and so on, right? That's how altcoin season would form. However, these institutions aren't looking to buy Bitcoin and flip it, right? That's not what they're doing. They're not trading Bitcoin per se, right? They're treating it as a store of value. So they're not participating here in the retail rotation game that creates altcoin season, right? As ultimately, let's say you're fucking BlackRock here coming in, right? Buying Bitcoin, right? Well, do you think they're buying it to sell it the next week, in a month, when Bitcoin is up? Of course not. They're here buying it as a store of value, holding it for years and decades to come, right? In fact, when the price goes down, all these institutions come in and start buying up even more. Bitcoin's cheap, let's buy more, right? That's the problem, right? Because ultimately, when Bitcoin pumps, with Ethereum pumping and the rest of the altcoins pumping. However, now when Bitcoin's pumping, really is institutions buying up, right? And they're not here to sell, right? They're not here to sell Bitcoin. In fact, they're here to buy. When the price drops, they want to buy more and get in a good price. Now, that's the problem. That's the first problem. First of some of the problems that I'll go through in this video, okay? We never had institutions like the size of BlackRock, Grayscale, right, coming in and buying Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies before. That's the problem, right? As we've never seen that before. And now that we're seeing it, we're seeing a completely different market. So what makes you think, right, that we're going to get the same market from 2021 when there's so much different aspects here and catalysts playing out that we've never experienced or seen before? That's when someone comes in and just says, oh, you know, there's a long-term trade or a long-term sort of vision on the market, right? It's very hard to believe. So even when I come in here and tell you, yes, there will be no altcoin season, there's still a slim chance that there might be altcoin season. And let me explain to you sort of where that comes from later on in this video, right? Now, this ultimately breaks down the old money rotation game, right? In 2021-22, that rotation cycle that we've had with Bitcoin, Ethereum, then flowing into layer ones and the rest of the altcoin market, that ultimately breaks it, right? What I think is going to happen, right, is we're going to have sector specifics, right? Sector specific runs. We will have a season for Deepin, have a season for AI, right? Let's say there's an AI company that's raised a lot of money, that's built an incredible product, and it's all over the headlines. We'll see a lot of the AI companies in crypto see a surge in price, right? And then a mini altcoin season for that industry, maybe AI agents and a few other industries as well. But really, it'll be centered around that industry, right? And that niche, and that overall narrative. But going back now to the institutions, right? Are they going to be trading those sector pumps, right? Of course they are. I'm sure a lot of them will, right? A lot of them will. Does that mean they'll just come in here and sell their Bitcoin? Well, of course not. Of course they're not just going to come here and sell their Bitcoin just so they can buy those. No, they're going to keep hold of the Bitcoin that they've got in at a good price for them, right? They'll stay there, hold their Bitcoin, and then put more capital in to trade these sort of sectors, right? When the time comes. Now, we can see here we haven't had an altcoin season since 2022. We've had different stints of it where Bitcoin's been pumping, but really we've stayed in that Bitcoin season, which is this red area here, the green area being altcoin season, right? We've stayed in this red area and pre-altcoin season throughout all these liquidity injections into Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana even, and Sui, right? I see liquidity injection, Solana, barely broke its ATH, Ethereum is yet to break it. And Sui is the only good example that I've seen, right, of a token pumping in this market. Top 50, top 100 token I'm talking about. Hyperliquid as well, right? But what does this mean, right? So I'm expecting the market to heat up in Q4 of 2025. Now this is just a prediction, and I've told you how I feel about predictions. I don't think they'll always play out how we believe they will with this market, but there's a lot of information here that's giving me a hint we will have a very strong run in Q4 of 2025 and Q1 of 2026, right? But those will be sector specific. We won't just have an altcoin season like before. Right, so in that case, right, you got to position yourself in sectors with real catalysts coming. You've got to, right? Study the tech, right? Stay up to date with the market, with the narratives on X, right? What's happening in the news, right? Follow dev timelines and not just price actions. Look at TVL, check the DeFi Llama, check the dev activity on GitHub, right? Check the project updates on what they've been working on. Be part of the communities, right? And just be prepared for those industry, so sector specific runs, right? Be prepared for those and not just put your portfolio scattered around different tokens. That could be a very, very costly mistake. Now, with that being said, that brings me to the end of this video, right? You've heard my theory here. It's not just my theory, it's an opinion that I've sort of gathered from a lot of professionals working in the space as well. A lot of executives, a lot of higher ups in different large crypto companies that I've talked to as well. People in my network, lots of KOLs as well. And they share similar opinion, most of them, right? Some of them still believe there'll be an altcoin season. And I'm not cancelling out the total sort of idea of an altcoin season like we've had in 21 and 22, right? And previously. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, right, is that it's going to be looking very different, and there might be a small, very slim chance the institutions of come in and follow how the cycle will play out, right? There's that slim chance. What I'm saying though, be prepared. Hope you guys found this video helpful. I'll see you guys next time. It's been your boy Tav Crypto. Take care.